Liverpool for hosting me. And Shehechiyanu v'kimani v'higanu lazman hazeh. Thank God we've all reached this occasion here. For those of us who can just return from Eretz Israel, for those of us who can move there, please do. For those of us who can visit there, please do. And for those of us who can donate there, please do. It's all we can do. Please do whatever we can for people in Israel. Just over 60 years ago this month, we first heard of these young lads from Liverpool. They had long hair, the music was totally different, and they talked very funny, I'll tell you that much. And I can't believe 60 years later, we're still talking about them, listening to them, and thank God for them. So, to those Liverpool, lovable, lyrical lads from Liverpool, especially Paul and Brian Epstein, I hope I can entertain you as much this morning as they've entertained me in the last 60 years. January 1st, 2003. I was in Orlando, Florida, the home of the Orlando Magic, Walt Disney World, and over 25,000 Jews. I was in Chabad of Orlando. It was about 10:30 in the morning, and we were not going to get a minyan. And I was saying Kaddish. So what to do? First off, I phoned my rabbi in Toronto. I asked him, what do you do? He says, technically, you can say Kaddish all day. As part of the daily service, their prayer services. So I did that. And I thought, wow, this must have happened to a lot of different people. You know, traveling, going somewhere, there's no minyan. What do you do? So I started writing around different organizations. I wrote the OU, Mizrahi, Lubavitch, many of the Kiruv organizations all over the world, many of the conservative, rabbinical organizations, and I came up with my first book called Living Kaddish. Why did I call it Living Kaddish? Because anyone knows who's saying Kaddish for 11 months, you're literally living the life of Kaddish. That's all you can think about. Morning and night is saying Kaddish. Morning and night you can try to get a minyan. And also by saying Kaddish, you're keeping the memory of that person going. You're actually creating them living. The Torah says that quite often when someone passes, by you saying Kaddish, you're replacing that person in shul. You're coming to minyan, and you're inspiring 9 others to join you for minyan. Kaddish is also actually mentioned in this week's Parsha. It's the first hint to Kaddish. When Yaakov was on his deathbed in Egypt, his 12 sons went up to him. It wasn't a great time. There's a lot of not so good stuff going on, sometimes similar to today. And they said to him, Dad, we're not going off the path. We're staying with you. And they said, Shema Yisrael, listen to Israel, because Yaakov's name was Israel by that point. Hashem Elokeinu, God is our God. God is one. And with that, Jacob answered, Baruch Shem Kavod Mahuto Leolam Boed. Blessed is God's holy name forever and ever. That is an approximate translation of the first line of Kaddish, the main line. Yehei Shmei Rabba Nevarach La'alam Al Me'al Maya. Now, Kaddish is also a thing which is probably the only mitzvah you can do without any expectation of a reward. Any mitzvah you do, charity, you'll get something back. Kashrus, maybe people will notice me. Anything else, but however, the mitzvah of Kaddish, it's something just l'shem shamayim. You do it, you have to do it. 11 months you're doing it. I'm going to share with you a couple of stories. One is from this book, another from the previous book. So I'll go a little bit forward. How did I come up with the next book? It's called Kaddish Around the World. I've been quite a few different places, and I spoke to a few other people. And we came up with stories from some very faraway places. Spain, Portugal, even England, but recently Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, New Zealand, where people have all found a way to get a minyan. I'm going to share one with you right now, which is from this previous book, and it's called A Safari in Kenya. This gentleman, Ivan Shore, he was in South Africa. He was very excited on his plan. He had a plan to go to Masai Reserve in Kenya, where there was hunting, there was, you can see anything you wanted there. You had to book months and months in advance. He convinced two of his chums to come with their wives, and they had it all booked for some time in January. So he had remembered that his yahrzeit for his father was around that time, but he didn't really know. A couple of weeks before he got the shock of his life, he realized that that trip to Kenya, which he had planned months in advance, was going to be at the exact same time when his father's yahrzeit was. He was in a struggle. His stomach was turning. How can I honor my father? He says, I've never missed a Kaddish. I've never missed a yahrzeit. What do I do? It went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. He asked the travel agent, no, you can't change it. And then he said, you know what? I'm going to go on the trip. God should forgive me. But it came the night of that time he was supposed to say Kaddish. He was sitting alone at a table by himself, very distraught. And his friends went up to him and said, hey, Ivan, what's going on? What's wrong? He said, you know what? I've missed a Kaddish, he says. I feel so bad about it. They said, don't worry about it. He said, no, it's the closest minyan is 1,000 miles away. How can God forgive you, really? You should have done it. Just at that moment, he hears a lot of rustling and bustling in the hotel lobby. He hears a lot of noise of these very noisy visitors coming in, speaking a foreign language he couldn't understand. He doesn't know what it is. And he approaches one of them, and he comes back with a smile on his face. He says to his friends, guess what? They say, what? We've got our minyan. He said, why? Those guys are Israelis. There's 7 guys in a tour group. They just agreed to volunteer to help us say Kaddish and make a minyan. They couldn't believe it. After that, he went up to the group and he says, friends, this is a miracle from above. God saw I couldn't get the minyan. So you know what? He sent the minyan to me. And that's exactly what happened. I started off yesterday in the State Center for Mincha about a Super Bowl story, and now I'll end it. A gentleman, a fellow named Monty Ostro, I spoke to him a couple of times, had tickets to the Super Bowl, 1997, biggest event you can imagine. He wouldn't miss it, so he went with his little friend over the Super Bowl, halfway, halftime, the Chargers and the Packers, everything like that. And then halftime, his little friend says, you know what he says? I'm actually saying Kaddish now. Saying Kaddish. Okay, well, what are we going to do? He goes, you know what? There's got to be a minyan in this shul, maybe in the synagogue, in the Super Bowl, maybe even more. He says, I don't think so. Let's give it a try. They went there, they looked around, they saw one keep in the crowd. He says, I don't know what we're going to do. He says, okay, I've got an idea for you. Come with me and don't say anything. Okay? They start walking, they go to Lost and Found. And this is what he says. Yes, sir, can I help you, sir? You've got to help me. You've got to help me. We've lost our little brother. We've lost our little brother. We can't find him anywhere. Okay, sir, relax, calm down, calm down. Okay, why don't you tell me his name? His name? His name is Mincha. Mincha. Okay, Mincha. And what's his last name? Service. Mincha Service. All right, how do you spell that? M-I-N-C-H-A, last name S-E-R-V-I-C-E. Okay, hold on a second, sir, relax. Ladies and gentlemen, attention please. Would Mincha Service please come to the Lost and Found? That Mincha Service come to the Lost and Found. Within less than 5 minutes, he had 14 people doing the Shemona Esrei. By the time he ended up doing Kaddish, he had 27 people doing the Shemona Esrei and saying Kaddish. At the end, he sees the same security guard of Lost and Found. And he says to the gentleman, says, well, friend, did you find your little brother? He says, more little brothers than you can imagine. Well, sir, who do you like in the game? He says, it doesn't really matter. Mincha service was the real winner. I'm going to tell you another story from first book, Living Kaddish, which is translated into Russian and also Spanish. And this, when I heard this one, this will really inspire you to come to Minyan all the time. There was a rabbi in the town of Ramat Gan. There was a congregant who started saying Kaddish for his mom. His mom, I think, was in Romania. There was no Minyan there. So he didn't know too much. But after 1 month, he starts coming to Minyan. 2 months, he comes on time, stays for the whole service. After 3 or 4 months, he's leading the services. He goes on and continues 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. He's coming every day to say Kaddish. 10 months, 11 months, doesn't miss a day. 12 months, 13 months, 14 months. You get the idea. He's still saying Kaddish. 15 months, 16 months. Finally, after 16 months, someone starts approaching him and says, I don't know if you say Kaddish so long. He goes up to the rabbi there and says, Rabbi, give me the answer. Do I say Kaddish for his mom? His mom, I think, was in Romania. There was no Minyan there. So he didn't know too much. But after 1 month, he starts coming to Minyan. 2 months, he comes on time, stays for the whole service. After 3 or 4 months, he's leading the services. He goes on and continues 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. He's coming every day to say Kaddish. 10 months, 11 months, doesn't miss a day. 12 months, 13 months, 14 months. You get the idea. He's still saying Kaddish. 15 months, 16 months. Finally, after 16 months, someone starts approaching him and says, I don't know if you say Kaddish so long. He goes up to the rabbi there and says, Rabbi, give me the answer. Do I say Kaddish or not? The rabbi says, come back in a week. Come back in a week? Okay. He asks him after the 1 week, Rabbi, I've heard it says I don't have to say Kaddish anymore. Do I have to or do I not? And everyone's looking at him just like you're looking at me. What's the answer? If he says yes, well, he's not telling the truth. And if he says no, then it's goodbye, Charlie. He lost a congregant. So the answer is, he looked at him straight up and he says, my dear friend, by the letter of the law, you don't have to say Kaddish. However, there's one line you have to say every single service. What is that? Yehei Shmei Rabba Mavarach L'Al Le'al Maya. May God's name be blessed forever and ever. Friends, when I heard that, I realized, if I come late, if I come early, if I have to leave, at least say Yehei Shmei Rabba Mavarach L'Al Le'al Maya. Now, in Canada and many places around the world, we had a little COVID fatigue. People did go, they didn't go, they could daven, they couldn't daven, and it was a very challenging time. I came up with a little bit of a slogan, I guess. We said the Tehillim this morning, the rabbi said it so nicely. One of the lines is, Hine lo yanon v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. Behold, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps, that's God. But I believe 2 years ago, there were still rockets falling from Gaza, and right now there still are. And I changed it slightly to Hine lo yanon v'lo yishan oivei Yisrael. The enemies of Israel no longer slumber nor sleep, but we have Tehillim. And I've heard it says that from another rabbi that Tehillim is connected to the word Tilim, which means rockets. We just put the Hey in the middle, the Hey of Hashem, God's name in there. So friends, I could say a lot more, but I'd prefer if you ask me questions. Again, what I'd like to do, did this before, as I say, suggested 15 for one book, 2 for 25, 3 for 30. Perhaps you can give one to a friend who doesn't need it, as I say, all proceeds to shul, or those that are definitely need to be helped in Israel. I really hope that we can do this and we can inspire. I'm totally very, very honored and to have such a wonderful, loud crowd here in Liverpool. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'd be happy to answer any of the questions afterwards, and please, thank you very much for coming. Any questions or thoughts you can say?